everyone. Welcome to the Heart Rim. I'm Travis Bruce, and today I have a special guest with us. He's an author. Let's see, he's done a little bit of anything, a little bit of everything, but he's an author, and he has two books out right now. One is called The Visitor, and the second one is called The Croon. I have with us Kevin Bacard. Kevin, welcome to the Heart Realm.
Hey, Travis, how's it going?
It's good, man. It's good, man. Listen, I got a lot of things to talk to you about, but first, let's jump into your first book, which is The Visitor. Tell us a little bit about it.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, so I have a few books out, a couple short story collections. The Visitor is my first novel. It's sort of a confined space, sort of thriller horror about a woman writing up at a cabin. She's trying to work through some childhood trauma, working on a book. And while she's there, she starts noticing strange things in the snow, strange tracks, strange noises out in the forest. And before you know it, she finds out who the visitor really is.
Ooh. Now, this is your first novel.
Yeah.
Was it hard to do a full-length novel compared to short stories?
It's a great question, Travis. It's funny because I brought this up with my wife just the other day because she was like, "Oh, you think you're going to do more short story collections, or are you going to stick with novels?" And I might stick with novels just because short story collections, in my collections, there are about 22 stories. So you have to come up with 22 stories that are as interesting as a novel. You have to have great characters. You have to have a great premise. You have to have great payoffs, and it has to be scary and has to be emotional. And so you have to do 22 of those. Whereas in a novel, I have to do that once. And yes, it's longer than a short story, but it's still just that one story. So right now I'm sticking on the novel train after doing 3 short story collections. So I think novels to me are easier than the short stories.
Because I mean, I can imagine one of the struggles with short stories is you got to have that beginning, middle, and end, and that character development only in a short time frame to keep that audience attention. Where a novel, you have time to spread it out and build up the character.
Oh, that's exactly right. I mean, you have that time to add little nuances and little flavors here and there, and really get to know the characters and really get deep into them. But not only your main character, but the side characters. So it becomes this fully fleshed out world. And trying to do that in a short story is the challenge. And that's what makes, a short story from being good to being great. And so, yeah, that is a challenge with short stories, trying to maintain that level of reader interest and character development.
So how the hell were you able to crank out 20-some short stories? How do you come up with ideas like that?
Over 60 because I had 3 short story collections released since last November. And part of it is I'm in the WGA. I'm also a screenwriter. My film, The Inhabitant, listeners and viewers to this podcast can check it out. It's on Hulu. It's on Apple Plus. I think it's on Prime. It's called The Inhabitant. So I'm in the WGA, the Writers Guild of America. And as you might know, we were on strike last year for about 5 months, from May through October. So I had a lot of time on my hands. And I wasn't working on screenplays at that time. So I sort of funneled my writing and all that time when you weren't on the picket line to writing short stories. So, I'm of that nature where I'm trying to write 2,000 to 3,000 words a day. I really, sit down and work from, that 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning till 6:30, 7 or whatever, writing. So it's when you have that discipline, you can create those short story collections.
Now, do you prefer writing stories compared to screenwriting?
They're both different disciplines, and they're very different. I mean, I'm sure you've seen screenplays, and people watching and listening can Google and find a screenplay. They're very different than a novel. It's more what they call a blueprint. Yes, you're writing and you're developing characters and so forth, but it's there's an action spot where you describe the action. then there's characters, then there's location, setting, you put the time of day and so forth. There's a format to it. There's a strict format on how you do things. When you introduce a character at first, it has to be all capital letters, with their age following and so forth. So with screenwriting, there's this very formulaic way of writing and doing it in this sort of blueprint. Whereas writing short stories or novels, you're more free form and able to go deeper and more enriched into the character.
Okay. Yeah, because like I'm assuming with screenplay, like you're doing it for the visual, and as a writer, for a reader, you're doing it. You kind of have to build a visual in there so that the audience can envision what is happening and what the character looks like.
Yeah, and when you're novel writing, you have much more leeway. You could get into the character's thoughts and tell us what that character is thinking. You're able to do that. Mm-hmm. In screenwriting, you're never allowed to do that. You can't tell us what they're thinking. They have to either express it through action or dialogue, and dialogue that's realistic, like a real conversation, and not just, "Hi, let me tell you about my day," or "You know what I'm thinking right now." Whereas in a novel, I could tell you what that character is thinking.
Yeah, because that would be odd. That'd be odd, Kevin.
Yeah.
Now, how long did it take you from the time of concept to getting into the publishing stages when it comes to The Visitor?
I started The Visitor last January. And I had it ready for publication. It published in July, so that was about 6 months of hardcore writing and developing it and so forth. But I never developed. I'm never working on one at one time. I have a bit of ADHD, and as I think a lot of sort of writers do, and so I'm working on. I was working on The Visitor as I was finishing a short story collection, as I was working on a screenplay, as I was starting The Crone. So it was all sort of happening at once.
So I feel like I have a mild case of ADHD, but I can only focus on one thing at a time. If not,
oh, really?
Yeah, I can only focus on one thing at a time. Like I'm horrible at multitasking. I cannot. You put too much on my plate, nothing's going to get done.
Yeah. So you're not one of those who are scrolling through TikTok while watching TV, while having a book open or something?
I can't, like, for instance, like if I'm editing my videos, right? If I'm editing stuff for content for YouTube, I cannot have my cell phone near me. I cannot have the TV on because I'm so easily distracted. I'm so easily distracted. I can only literally focus. I come down here into the office in the complete dark and silence, and like I have to focus on one thing because I'm so easily distracted. I wish I could be that way. I wish I could watch the football game and do work at the same time.
Yeah. No, I'm the same way. Like, this is my space where I work, and it's a dedicated space, and I don't ever turn the TV on during the day or anything like that. So yeah, I'm working on multiple things, but I keep distractions to a minimum.
Now, you actually brought up your second book, The Crone. Tell us a little bit about that one.
So The Crone is it's actually part of a series. So The Visitor, The Crone, and it's going to end up with The Apartment. And it's called the Houses of Horror series. And it's basically, we always think of our homes as this safe place, this place where nothing can happen to us, where harm can't come to us. We have our doors locked. We have our windows shut. And so the Houses of Horror series, starting with The Visitor and now The Crone, and then it ends with The Apartment, looks at when our homes are invaded by things that are terrifying. So The Visitor is this woman up at the cabin, and The Crone is set in Connecticut, and it's a husband and wife with a small child, and they're home flippers. They're people who renovate homes, and they end up taking on a home that doesn't want to be renovated, that sort of be fighting back, and we find out why. And that's the Crone. And the Crone is another name for a witch. And it gets into witchcraft and witch lore, and sort of, it's based on some true stuff because I'm a documentary filmmaker too. So it's based on the first witch trials. Everybody knows the Salem witch trials, but decades earlier, there were these witch trials in Connecticut, and they put to death a number of witches in Connecticut. So it uses that as part of the lore of the crone as well. So it's perfect for Halloween, and it's coming out next month. And it's basically sort of a haunted house meets witches story.
Oh, see, I'm interested in that. Now, do the books have tie into each other at all, or no?
No. Yeah, there's no recurring characters or anything. It's just the theme of the home, but it sort of ties in thematically through homes.
Okay. Now, you actually brought up that you've done documentary work. You've also, covered dangerous animals. Tell us about this. I'm fascinated about this.
Yeah. So, part of my life is documentary filmmaker. I worked at National Geographic for 10 years and then formed my own company. And if you've watched, I always tell people, hey, have you watched National Geographic? Have you watched Discovery Channel? Have you watched PBS Nature over the years? And if you have, or you've watched A&E or the History Channel, you've seen my work. Have you watched Shark Week? Have you watched Shark Fest on National Geographic? You've seen my work. Yeah, I'm filming the sharks. I've been in the water filming, whether it's a great white or tiger sharks or oceanic white tips. I've been in the water. I filmed giant leeches in the Amazon, vampire bats in Belize. I filmed tornadoes and hurricanes and everything in between. So sort of the scary parts of the world, I've kind of put a camera out there and filmed them.
I love it. Now, what's the most dangerous animal you've seen? Like I've been seeing a lot of videos. People are promoting. I'm showing these Komodo dragons who are some. Oh my goodness, they're awful. Now, have you ever been in a situation where you were close to a dangerous animal?
Yeah, I've been free swimming with sharks. I've been close to elephants and hippos and lions, and I've done numerous venomous snake stories with rattlesnakes and fer de lance. I've done killer bees. So I've been next to all these animals, and I've gotten stung, and thankfully I've never been bitten, but I've had a giant cobra raise up and start hissing at me and start making those darting moves towards me, which I will say that no scary movie I've ever seen has scared me much than that. When you see this cobra sort of lift itself up to basically almost your height and start sort of looking at you, that was scarier than any Friday the 13th or Jason that I've ever seen right there. But in terms of the scare, I mean, it's like one of those facts. The most deadliest animal in the world, the deadliest creature is a mosquito. Mosquito kills more people through malaria and diseases than any other animal. In terms of more deaths, I know it's the mosquito, but I know in Africa, as you probably know, it's the hippo, and I've seen hippo charges, and they're so territorial that they attack, and their jaws are immense. I mean, geez, it's like a trunk opening up, and they have these teeth. They're vegetarians, but they do have these teeth for pulling up, aquatic plants and so forth. But if you get in their range, they'll come at you with the speed of lightning. So hippos are scary.
And I want to speak for that. So I've spent a significant amount of time throughout Africa, East Africa, Uganda, Kenya, all throughout. And you're not lying about the mosquitoes. One of the things, you have to do if you're not from there is you have to get these pills. And you have to take these malaria pills pretty much the whole entire time you're fucking there. You know what I mean? You really do. Because it would take you out. Boom. And the second thing is the hippos. In Uganda, more people die from getting trampled by hippopotamus than anything fucking else. And here's my story with which I almost got killed by a hippopotamus. I was in Jinja, and I was staying in. I was camping. It was more like glamping, and I went out and in Jinja. The power go and 9 p.m. the lights go out. All the power goes out. So it's
right because you're on
dark.
Generators and they can't
Correct.
Run all night.
So like at 9 o'clock there's done, and so I would walk around. I smoked a cigarette, and I went out to smoke a cigarette. I had my little torch light on, but I didn't think anything about it. I didn't cut it on, and I'm smoking. I could just feel something breathing on me, and I
Oh my
opened,
God.
and I turned my torch light, and it was a hippo standing this close to me, mouth, like you were saying, was open. And they say the worst thing to do is run.
Right.
Because they're blind, but they hear noise. That's what calls them to go. And of course, I ran. And thank God I survived that situation. But I almost had my legs taken out from me from a warhog and everything. It's a lot of crazy stuff.
Yeah, everybody's scared of the lions and the leopards and stuff. And yeah, they could kill you. But it's elephants and Cape buffalo and hippos that are super territorial. That are the things you really have to worry about, more so than the big cats.
Correct. And the big cats are you have to kind of go into, they call them, I'm trying to think what they call them. They call them national parks. You kind of have to go into the national parks to see those. But like in Kampala, which is like a city like Baltimore, New York, whatever, you still see hippos moving around. It looks like a sophisticated city, but you can run into a hippo just like that.
Yeah, same thing with Cape buffalo, and Cape buffalo are huge, and with those horns that they have, and they battle lions all the time and win.
Yeah.
And again, like hippos, they're very territorial, and they'll come at you, and there's nothing you can do, and they'll just flick you in the air, and you'll go 30 feet like nothing.
So how did you get into that? How did you get into covering National Geographic?
Hey, a little bit of inspiration, hopefully, for the kids out there. But we were talking before, I'm a New York City kid, born and raised in Queens, in an apartment. And I'm a child of the New York public school system. And growing up in New York in an apartment, I'd watch these National Geographic shows and fascinated. And I was sort of like, I want to do that. I want to go places. I'm tired of Queens and asphalt and stuff. And so I went to Brooklyn College as a TV radio major. Again, that's a public school, public college in New York City. And got jobs that got me to National Geographic. So it's one of those things, sort of like, look, if I could do it, you could do it. It's so if there's some kid out there right now who's 11 years old, 12 years old in New York City or any inner city, and going like, oh, I'm never going to be able to do that. I did it, and if I could do it, you could do it. Because trust me, I was not an A student. So don't let good grades get in the way of a dream,
Yes, exactly. And I'm just too, anybody who's afraid to travel abroad, I was afraid for the longest time. And I'm telling you, you have to do it. You have to do it. I've been to God knows how many countries in this world. And it definitely changes you as a person, as you Kevin. It definitely changes you as a person. It changes your when you come back here, it changes your view on life and everything. It completely changes. Because before I went to Africa, this is what I literally thought in my mind. I thought I was going to run into warlords and starving children, which I'm not saying that's not there, but I thought I was going to run into people with bones through their nose. I'm not saying that's not there, but that's way in the remote woods. But I went there and I was like, oh my goodness, this looks like, I live in Baltimore. This looks like Baltimore. This looks like New York. Without roads, concrete roads, but you know what I mean? There's movie theaters, there's Walmarts and KFCs and all that good stuff.
No, I tell people this. You're talking about Africa and whether it's Africa or jungles of South America. Look, everybody just wants the same thing. They want to live peacefully. They want to provide for their family, and if they have children, and they want their children to sort of climb that ladder rung higher than they did. I mean, that's exactly what everybody I've seen, every culture, every place I've been, that's what they want. And I've never been I'm always welcomed wherever it's been, whether Japan, the jungles of Africa, South America. But I will say this, and you might enjoy this. So first time I went to Africa was years ago. And, I was out on the plains and elephants, and I saw lions attacking antelope and eating, and their faces all bloody. And I was there for over a month, and I came back, and I I thought I was a changed person. And like my wife was like, you see calmer. And it's like, because I've been to the cradle of life. I've been to where man first came, man and women first stood upright. It's sort of like, I've seen sort of like life and death played out in the plains. It's sort of like nothing else matters. And I was like calm driving. If somebody would pass me, I'd be like, go ahead. It doesn't matter. Go for it, dude. Go for it. And I'm just sort of like, my wife's like, wow, you have changed. And I'm like, I am. And about 3 days later, somebody tried passing me. I'm like, what the hell are you doing, you motherfucker?
Yeah.
The life-changing moment lasted about 3 days.
Because when you go somewhere and they don't have toilets and you got to take a dump in a smelly hole, right? When you come back here and you got that nice warm toilet, you're like, oh, I got it so good. I have it so great.
Yeah,
I have it so great.
The only problem, it just lasted like 3 days for me. That's it.
Exactly, right? Now you have worked with my favorite horror director, Wes Craven. Tell us a little bit about that experience. I'm jealous.
Yeah, God rest his soul. I mean, he passed away about 10 years ago. So I did a series for National Geographic called Phobias, and we looked at people's phobias, their fears. It was 13 episodes, and we'd find somebody with a terrible phobia. Like there was this woman who was terrified of snakes in Toronto, who couldn't even look at a garden hose without bursting in tears, She would look at a picture book of a snake and she would start shaking and screaming in terror. And so we would work with that person, and we would follow them through therapy as they got over that fear. And the last part of the show would be them sort of confronting their fear. So we would have the woman who was terrified of snakes, went to the Narcisse snake dens in Canada, where 10 to 30, 40, 50,000 garter snakes come out of the ground in May to mate. And she was standing amongst them as if nothing, like she was never scared. We did a woman who was terrified of clowns and, scared and terrified of clowns to no end. And there she was at the circus at the end. And so we wanted somebody who'd be our fear expert, who knew fear as much as anybody, who we interview and talk about all these phobias. And so we approached Wes Craven, and he said, yes, he'd love to do it. And so we went to his offices and we interviewed him a few times for each of the episodes. So, we had phobias on night, we had phobias on clowns and spiders and so forth. And he was phenomenal. See, you might know this because you're a Wes Craven fan, but he studied psychology in college, and he was also had a degree in philosophy. So he knew about this stuff. So we'd ask him about, and you totally get this because we were just talking about it. Africa, we'd be talking about fear of darkness because we did that. People scared of the night and darkness. And he would be like, well, that comes from when we were sort of on the plains of Africa. He goes, people think of darkness today. They go outside and they think that's dark. He goes, that's not dark. It's sort of with all the street lights and the ambient light and the lights reflecting off the clouds. That's not dark. But if you go to Africa on a moonless night, that's dark. You can't see more than 10 feet or so in front of you if it's a moonless night. He goes, and that's dark. And when you start hearing noises and you start knowing that there are things that could eat you out there, then you understand why we're terrified of darkness. It's in our DNA to be scared of darkness. And you'd be like, oh my God, Wes, thank you so much. It's like he totally got it. With spiders, he's like, we're scared of spiders because as humans, as mammals, we're used to a certain way things walk. They lope. A cat lopes. It moves this way. Even an elephant, a human, we sort of take this gentle strides and stuff. But a spider moves quick. Insects move quick. They move in this herky-jerky movement. And that scares us. That's something we're not familiar with. We don't like that. And he nailed it on each one. He knew why we were scared, which made him such a great horror director, because he literally, like, it's like the old sort of like, it knows what scares you. He did. He knew what scared you and why it scared you.
Like I'm terrified. I'm absolutely terrified of heights. I mean, I can't even get on a ladder like without shaking. And that's one of the reasons I didn't travel abroad until like my late 20s was because I was afraid to get on a plane. Now, plane is no big deal to me at all. But like roller coasters, none of that. I can't do it.
Yeah, it's we did Fear of Heights, and we had a woman who couldn't get on a step ladder, and she couldn't get on the slide with her kids at the playground. And she went through the therapy. We filmed it, and at the end, we took her up on the side of a building, a skyscraper in Manhattan, a 50-story skyscraper, and with the window washers. So she
oh my goodness, I'm about
that. She was totally able to get everybody we did got over their fears: fear of germs, fear of claustrophobia, fear of planes, fear of snakes, fear of spiders. They all got over their fears.
I tried to get over my fear. This is an embarrassing story, Kevin.
Share it with us. This is therapy. Go for it.
I tried to get over my fear of heights by doing one of those indoor climbing, rock climbing things.
Yeah.
And I got all the way to the top, right? And so this place is filled with kids, by the way. And the kids are just jumping off. Right. I got up to the top and I couldn't get back down. I mean, I couldn't jump. I didn't want to jump. And I'm like literally freaking out. And then so it's all the music stops. Everybody's crowded around looking, this and that. And the manager is like, "Sir, you have to jump. If not, your cable's going to eventually break. Just jump back." And I just couldn't do it. And it was so embarrassing because everybody started cheering, Travis, like little kids and stuff, right? And I finally jumped down, and I was just so embarrassed. I was like, "Wow, why did I decide to do this?" But it was kind of rewarding to be able to climb up there and jump down afterwards. Embarrassing, but yeah.
But did it help? I mean, did it help you get over your fear?
Tiny bit. A tiny bit.
But that's exactly what, when we filmed all the people, the therapists, they don't care why Travis is scared of heights. They don't care if maybe when you were a little baby, when you were a 3-year-old, your dad took you to the top of the local bridge and dropped you off trying to kill you. They don't care about your childhood trauma. They feel that what your reaction is just this heightened sense of fear. You're a car alarm that goes off when somebody just walks past it. You feel like you're going to die. You feel like your chest starts to beat in your heart beats in your chest at like 80,000 beats per minute. You're sweating. You start to go into a panic attack. And that's just your body overreacting. And you think you're going to die. And so what the therapists do is they make you confront that and show you you're not going to die. See, so they do this therapy where first we're going to show you the pictures, then we're going to have you hold a live snake, then we're going to take you to the zoo so you can handle snakes there, and then we're going to take you where thousands of snakes come out. And in each step, the person realizes, I'm not dying. Oh, my heart isn't exploding in my chest. I can work through this. And you realize that your fear is not really a fear. It's your reaction to the physical stress that you're creating in your body.
And that's interesting. See, yeah. Now I got to find out. Is that still? Can you still find it? Episodes of that?
It might be on YouTube. I'm not sure. It was called Phobias. Yeah. Yeah, it's sort of, and that's what good horror does. It makes that reaction for you. I mean, it makes that heartbeat fast. It makes you start to sweat. Makes you start to feel uncomfortable. That's what good horror is supposed to do. That good horror is supposed to do exactly what I was just describing that happens to phobias, phobia patients. It's the same thing. Every horror director, every horror writer, every person who's involved in horror wants to get from their audience that feeling that their heart is going to explode in their chest.
Yes. Yes. Now, I'm saying you have an interesting story to tell us about Stephen King, the great Stephen King.
Yeah, I mean, it's a kind of a tangential Stephen King story, but it ties into kind of everything we've been talking about, sort of. So I'm sure if you have horror lovers out there, there's a number of them who know the X-Files. I'm sure you know the X-Files.
Love X-Files.
Yeah, X-Files was this great series that aired sort of late 90s, mid 90s, late 90s on Fox. And It has been revived a few times, and it's about a couple of FBI agents, Mulder and Scully, and they would go and try to find answers to these questions. Whether it was UFOs was kind of the overarching theme, but there were monsters of the week stories as well, and so forth. And what happened was there was an episode a pretty famous episode that Stephen King wrote. I think it's called the Chinga, which is about this doll that has supernatural powers. And it's the only episode he wrote. And it takes place in Maine. And Scully, who's the female part of the duo, Mulder's the male, and Scully. Mulder's back in Washington, and the FBI office is there. And Scully is in Maine for some reason. I can't remember what. And she's investigating these kind of weird deaths. And it might be tied to this doll. And at one point, she calls back to the office to her partner, Mulder, who's at his desk, and he's watching TV. And the TV is on. We don't see what's on it, but there are sounds coming from the TV that makes it very clear he might be watching something that might be called porn. And,
really?
and so she's talking to him, and she hears that in the background, and she goes, "What are you watching, Mulder?" And he says, "World's Most Deadliest Swarms. I produced that show for Fox."
Oh,
I produced World's Deadliest Swarms for Fox TV, which meant Stephen King knew about my show, and he wrote
that's
it
awesome.
in the episode. I was watching it from home. I literally, this is what I did.
I
Fainted.
bet.
It was
like it was like for me, the closest thing I had to that was Art the Clown from the Terrifier, the actor.
Yeah.
Like he shared or commented he shared one of my videos on his Facebook because I was talking about this scam contest, and he was like, "And see this guy right here." And he was referencing me. I was like, "What the fuck? Oh my goodness, that's fucking awesome!"
Yeah, when you were sort of recognizable and big and so forth, sort of like recognize you, and you don't even realize it. It's just kind of a what?
Yeah.
So I've never met Mr. Stephen King. I'm a huge admirer, of course, of Mr. Stephen King, but through the magic of TV, we're connected. We know about each other now.
Awesome, man. Awesome. I love that story. Now, why was Mulder watching porn?
It's kind of I guess it was a thing that he kind of had a bit of an addiction, and they kind of played that up a few times during the series.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't remember him having porn addiction. Now, I know David Duchovny, the actor, was in another show that was called Californication, and he was definitely a sex addict in that show. So
yeah, which was a good show. I remember watching that on show. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He played a writer who was always getting in trouble, which I understand completely.
Now, Kevin, where can everyone find you and your work?
Look, if you Google the name, that's right down there. Where is it? Right there. Kevin Bachar, Kevin Bachar. I'll show up. I've been lucky enough that I've done a number of shows over the year, like World's Deadliest Swarms to Shark Fest to PBS Nature. So I'm pretty much have a pretty wide social or a web presence. So if you Google my name, I come up. Or you go to Amazon and you type in my name under Kindle or under anything, and you'll see some of my films come up, some of my documentaries, and then all of my books, my short story collections, Dread, Creep, and Cursed, and my two current novels, The Visitor and The Crone, which comes out next month, right in time for Halloween. So yeah, thank you so much, Travis, for letting me sort of like show my wares to the world here.
Well, that's my job, Kevin. My job is to shine a spotlight on indie horror. That's my job.
Well, you're doing a great job, and I applaud you and all of us indie horror, whether it's filmmakers or writers. We really really respect and admire you and really give you thanks for helping us out.
And I appreciate you guys for, listen, giving me hours and hours and hours of entertainment. So I appreciate you guys back as well. Listen, everybody, get your asses over to Amazon and grab your copy of The Visitor, The Crone, and listen, and all of Kevin's other work as well. And also, too, get over to Hulu. We forgot about Hulu. And check out The Inhabitant.
The Inhabitant. Yep.
The Inhabitant. Check that out as well. And Google, as I am, the National Geographic Phobia. I'm definitely gonna see if I can find that on YouTube, because that sounds absolutely interesting.
Yeah, it's really good.
All right, listen, everyone. Well, thank you for coming to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and that's Kevin Bakar. We'll see you next time. Take care.